Hi there, this is Dale from Book Brand Business and the Soul Writers Academy. And today I'm absolutely delighted to once again welcome Esther Nagle to Writing for the Soul. And what we're going to talk about today is the breath. Now, I've been running something called 101 Days of Being Me. And I just give you a little bit of background about that, and then we'll introduce Esther, and we'll talk about the breath and the importance of the breath. Now, several years ago, 4 years ago, I upped sticks one day and drove to Spain. I left a unpleasant relationship, and when I got here, I really thought about, well, how do I navigate this first. Well, first of all, it was 100 days, but I added one on for good measure, 101 days. And, when you're in a leadership position, your first 100 days of leadership are absolutely vital. So for 101 days, I just sat and journaled, and I just said, today I am, today I feel, today I have. And I also recorded it, but I got rid of all the recordings because some of them were a little bit distressful. Because you can imagine, you've traveled halfway across the world and you end up in some place. And I actually ended up in a house that was never intended to be for me to live in. It was a reform. So I ended up in Spain. Anyway, so last year, something happened and I was unwell for most of the year. And I journaled for the entire year. But when I got to the beginning of this year, I knew that I was going to do 101 days again. And throughout all of my healing, I have journaled. Now, part of the reason that I wanted to talk to Esther today was when my spine fractured in January, I couldn't breathe, just like that. I mean, obviously I could breathe because I'm alive. But at that point of distress or de-stress, my breath went away. And what has happened is I have focused on like rebuilding the bone, healing the gut, looking at the immune system. I had lots of other complications. And the one thing that I haven't focused on is I'm actually doing it now, but I didn't focus on my breath. So who is Esther? So I've known Esther for many, many, many years. When you hear her accent, that's where I used to live, and I do miss the green grass of home. Although home is the brown hills of Andalusia. See how I keep going off on tangents, looking at my beautiful mountains. So Esther is a yoga teacher. She very much focuses on the breath as well as the philosophy and postures. She's an author. She's wrote a great book, and she is, aren't you, writing another one?
I am.
Thank you.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she focuses very much on stress and the breath. So when I think about breath, and like I said to you, it's been neglected. I healed everything else, but I forgot about this part of me, this essential part of me. And I know through your expertise in terms of stress, I feel the you're making me go dizzy with your camera going. I know for me that when I feel anything, I feel a tightness up here. So for me, breath is the breathing and the apparatus, but also the breath of life, that joy that we feel in the world. And for me, I guess, living in such a beautiful place, the fact that I'm journaling, it's those moments that take the breath away. So the breath for me is not just let it all out. It's kind of multi-dimensional. So I just wanted, from your perspective, I've obviously got some questions for you. What does the breath mean to you, and how did you kind of get into this, focusing on this beautiful piece of apparatus?
So it's interesting because actually, as a result of the journaling that I've done, I realized that although, breath is something that comes with us throughout our lives, it's the first thing we do when we're born, and we all breathe throughout our lives, but it's been a real theme in my life. Diagnosed with asthma when I was a little girl, and I could never breathe through my nose because I had it turned out to be a dust allergy. Nobody knew when I was a child that I had this dust allergy. I had my adenoids removed, all these problems that meant I was completely incapable of breathing through my nose for a very long time. And I had asthma. I also started smoking, which was all part of my self-sabotaging, self-destructive. You know, it's interesting that the first thing I turned to when I was looking for ways to kind of self-destruct, not that I knew I was doing that, but it was something that hurt my breath. And I find that fascinating. That was my first act of real self-sabotage. And so my breath has been a constant, there's been a constant tension with breathing for me throughout my life. Mm. I started to explore yoga. And when I started to do my yoga teacher training, which there's a whole backstory to why I ended up doing yoga teacher training, which probably now is not the time to go into that, but it was very much stress related, very much mental health related. It was my savior. And I learned to breathe. He gave up eating dairy products to reduce the mucus, which meant I was finally, for the first time in my life, at the age of 41, to breathe through my nose. And it was a revelation to actually be able to sit and breathe and control my breath. Now, I'd been going to yoga classes for about 6 years at that point. And the reason I went was because of my asthma. You know, I could give up smoking to improve my asthma. But that meant giving
That's so funny.
Instead, I went to yoga. But I always hated the breathing because I couldn't breathe through my nose. And it used to make me feel really anxious. Rather than making me feel calm, breathing through my mouth just felt very anxious and I was very uncomfortable. But when I learned to breathe, it changed everything for me. I was able to control my breath and to actually sit with my breath and to really learn to breathe properly. It changed everything. And I was able to give up smoking. I was able to give up drinking. I was able to sleep and to actually get a grip of my emotional state. So to me, breathing is very much connected to my mental well-being and my physical health, but especially my mental health. It was the learning to breathe, although the whole, discovering the whole depths of yoga was huge for me. I'd been doing yoga for 6 years without any concept that there was anything other than postures in yoga. But so learning about the philosophy, the yamas and the niyamas were life-changing, but learning to breathe just transformed everything. And it meant that my life changed so significantly that I'm still reeling from it in lots of ways. So to me, it is life, we need it to survive, but also if you learn to connect your breath, you have the opportunity to transform your world and to take control of your life in ways that you just don't even realize you have available to you.